When a former Special Forces operative, Jason Statham, is forced back into action after a deadly betrayal, he embarks on a relentless mission for justice. As he uncovers a sinister global conspiracy, every punch, every chase, and every bullet brings him closer to the truth. But in a world where trust is a weakness, the ultimate question remains, who is the real enemy? Jason Statham had left the life of a Special Forces operative behind, or so he thought. But the past has a way of catching up with men like him. It started with a single phone call, a voice he hadn't heard in years, laced with urgency. "They found you," the voice warned. "Run." He didn't hesitate. Within moments, his instincts took over. He grabbed his pistol from the nightstand, threw on a jacket, and stepped out into the cold London night. His eyes scanned the streets. He wasn't alone. Across the road, a black SUV idled, its windows tinted. A second later, the driver's side door cracked open. Jason moved fast. A gunshot rang out as he ducked into a side alley. Shards of brick sprang from the wall where the bullet had struck. He didn't need to look back to know they were already in pursuit. His boots pounded against the pavement as he weaved through the labyrinth of alleys. The city around him blurred, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He turned a corner and leaped over a fence, landing with practiced ease. The voices behind him were getting closer. He had seconds, not minutes. His mind raced. Why now? Who sent them? He had been off the grid for years. He needed answers. As he sprinted through the streets, memories of his last mission resurfaced. The betrayal, the bloodshed, the friend he lost. His past had finally come knocking. He made it to an underground fight club, a place where questions weren't asked and faces stayed in the shadows. The stench of sweat and beer filled the air. Fighters circled each other in the ring, their bodies glistening under the harsh fluorescent lights. Jason walked in, every muscle in his body tense. He wasn't here to fight, but the moment he stepped forward, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. "Didn't think I'd see you again," said Carter, an old ally turned informant. "Word is someone put a price on your head." Jason's jaw clenched. "Who?" Carter hesitated, then leaned in. "The Syndicate. They think you have something of theirs." Jason narrowed his eyes. The Syndicate, an underground organization known for arms dealing, political assassinations, and controlling the global black market. He thought he had taken them down years ago. Apparently he was wrong. Before he could ask another question, the room exploded into chaos. Gunmen burst in, opening fire. The crowd scattered. Jason ducked behind a table, grabbing a steel pipe from the floor. He moved with precision, disarming one attacker, striking another across the jaw, then spinning to avoid a blade aimed at his ribs. The fight was over in seconds. He stood over the last man, gripping his collar. "Who sent you?" he said. The man groaned, blood dripping from his nose. "You'll find out soon enough." Jason had no time to waste. He stole a car and drove through the city streets, the lights flashing past him. His next stop was an abandoned warehouse at the docks, a known syndicate hideout. He stepped out of the car, the salty air filling his lungs. His fingers hovered over the trigger of his gun as he entered the building. Inside, crates were stacked high, marked with foreign insignias, weapons, drugs. The syndicate was still running operations under the radar. As he moved through the shadows, a voice echoed from above. "I knew you'd come." Jason turned, gun raised. Standing on the upper platform was Vincent Kane, a name he thought was buried in the past. Kane had once been his closest ally before betraying him on their final mission. Jason thought he had put a bullet in him years ago. "You should have stayed dead," Jason said coldly. Kane smirked. "I missed the fun. We never finished our business, mate." The air grew thick with tension. Within seconds, a dozen armed men stepped out of the shadows, guns aimed at Jason. But he had come prepared. He pulled the pin on a flashbang and threw it to the ground. The explosion of light blinded his enemies as he moved swiftly, taking out each one with deadly precision. He engaged Kane in a brutal hand-to-hand fight, exchanging blows. The fight was relentless. Jason ducked a punch, countered with a knee to Kane's stomach, then slammed him against the wall. "Why?" Jason growled. "Why come after me?" Kane chuckled through bloodied lips. "It was never about you. It's about what you know." Jason's mind clicked. The last mission they had together, classified intelligence, encrypted files that had disappeared after the operation. He never knew what was in them. But the syndicate did, and they wanted it back. The sound of sirens filled the distance. Kane smirked. "Looks like our time's up." Jason knew he had to leave. He delivered a final, crushing punch that sent Kane sprawling. Then he grabbed a hard drive from the table and vanished into the night. The chase wasn't over. He had what they were after. Now the real hunt had begun. A citywide pursuit ensued. Helicopters hovered above as Jason maneuvered through the tight alleys on a stolen motorcycle. Bullets whizzed past him, ricocheting off buildings. He dodged traffic, weaving through the streets with precision only a man of his training could manage. The night was alive with chaos, but he thrived in it. He made it to a safe house, breathing heavily. He plugged the hard drive into a laptop, eyes scanning the encrypted files. As the code unraveled, his expression darkened. The syndicate wasn't just dealing in weapons and drugs. They had infiltrated governments, controlled entire industries, and were planning something catastrophic, a coordinated attack, one that would shift global power in their favor. Time was running out. Jason knew he couldn't fight them alone. He needed allies. He reached out to an old contact, a woman named Isabel, an intelligence officer who had once worked with him before everything went south. When she answered, her voice was laced with tension. "I was wondering when you'd call." They met in an abandoned train station. Isabel's sharp eyes studied him. "You always find trouble, don't you?" Jason smirked. "This one's bigger than anything we've dealt with before." She glanced at the files and her expression hardened. "If this is real, we need to move now." The final battle was set. Jason and Isabel infiltrated the syndicate's main headquarters, a high-tech facility in the heart of the city. They moved with deadly efficiency, taking out guards with silent takedowns and precise gunfire. Jason reached the control room, where Kane stood waiting. "You'll never learn, do you?" Kane sneered. Jason aimed his gun. Something's never changed. Well, their final fight was brutal. Raw fists, broken bones, and a clash of two warriors who had once fought side by side. Jason finally gained the upper hand, pinning Kane against the control panel. "It's over," Jason said. Kane grinned, blood on his teeth. "You'll never stop us all." Jason didn't hesitate. He knocked him unconscious and activated the system override, sending all syndicate data to global intelligence agencies. Within minutes, the alarms blared. The syndicate was exposed. Their empire crumbled. As Jason and Isabel walked out of the burning building, sirens wailing in the distance, she looked at him. "What now?" Jason glanced at the city skyline. "There's always another fight." He disappeared into the night, a ghost in the chaos, a man with a past that would never let him go.